Hello, I'm Wendy Kirkpatrick, and I am so excited that you're joining us today. I'm with my business partner, Dr. Jim Kirkpatrick, and what we want to talk about is why right now are some training professionals thriving and some are absolutely struggling. Well, the Kirkpatrick model has been around for over 60 years, and over this time, it has been validated and it's tried and it's true. And we've really boiled it down to a specific set of reasons why some people do thrive and why some are still struggling. So today, what we're going to share with you is the actually deceptively simple secrets behind why some people are struggling and why some do better than others. So let's talk today about how you can retool your training and evaluation strategy. Jim, you've had some of these conversations with training professionals just recently. Which ones stick out in your mind that might help others?
Well, I'll share two that recently happened. Months ago, I got a call from a guy named Bob, who works for a federal agency, a rather large one. And he said that he has been charged with creating and implementing a customer service initiative, a major one, over the next 10 years that is designed to increase the amount of cohesion and cooperation between this agency and citizens. And he asked me what suggestions I had and how to help make that a success. Well, I first made sure that I listened to him and was clear about what he was asking. And then I told him, well, training alone isn't going to get the job done, to just train a lot of people and hope for the best. So I talked to him about building relationships with the senior sponsors of this program, building relationships with the line managers and supervisors, being clear about what the end result was supposed to look like, and focusing on performance to achieve those end goals. Well, he listened and he said, I'll get back to you. Well, I think it was the next day I received a call from Maria, who works for a healthcare agency. And it was odd that she asked the very same questions, only instead of a customer service initiative, it was a leadership initiative. She had the same questions and the same challenge that we have to make sure this is successful. We have to get it right the first time, because this was a leadership initiative that was designed to help bring health and longevity to the lives of patients who were at risk. And again, I listened, I confirmed what she was saying, and I told her the same things that I had told Bob, that it is important to make sure you build the relationships, the working partnerships, begin with the results that were expected, and to focus on not just the training, but what happens before training, the training itself, and particularly what happens after training in order to bring about those results. And to close the loop on this, I didn't hear from Bob again, but I did hear from some of his colleagues that what they decided to do was train over 50,000 employees in how to create better customer service. But in contrast, Maria stayed with us. She took, and her team of 20 people, they went through our bronze program, they went through the silver program, and they were very diligent about executing what it was they learned. And they made sure that the errors that were happening and the slow work that was causing delays in getting these medical treatments to this at-risk group happened quicker. And she was so proud to say, and I talked to their whole group months later, even just recently, to say that those people that were at risk were now not only receiving better healthcare treatment, but their lives were enhanced, their relationships were enhanced, and it looks like their lives are going to be extended beyond what they were before. So that is kind of a contrast of thrive versus struggle. Wendy, I'm going to send it back to you to kind of talk about how this actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, what a difference. Saving lives. Isn't that something we all want to be a part of? So there are some key underlying principles that work. Like Jim said, whether you're a government agency or you're a corporation, military, a humanitarian organization, the same principles work because they're tried and true and they're really universal. So let's start at the top with level 4 results. The first thing that you need to do is define really what outcome are you looking for. Level 4 is pretty much what it sounds like, the degree to which targeted outcomes occur as a result of not just the training, but also a support and accountability package. This is the outcome that you're trying to get, whether it's saving lives, improving customer service and customer outcomes, higher profitability, whatever it might be. But you're not going to get the level 4 results you're looking for in the amount that you're looking for unless you concern yourselves with level 3 behavior. Now, level 3 behavior is the degree to which your training participants actually apply what they learned during training when they're back on the job or in the field or in real life. So not do they know it, not can they do it, but are they actually reliably on a day-to-day basis doing what you taught them how to do in training? Then we cross back into what's pretty familiar territory for training professionals, and that's level 2 learning. This is what an awful lot of us think is our job. That's just making sure that by the end of training, the participants have acquired the knowledge, the skill, the attitude, the confidence, and the commitment that was intended for the training. So pretty straightforward, right? But that's where we have to realize our job doesn't stop there unless people actually use it at level 3 behavior and then get the outcomes at level 4 results. So then that brings us to level 1 reaction, the most commonly known and used level around the world. Level 1 reaction is the degree to which participants find the training favorable, engaging, and relevant to their jobs. When you start with the levels in this order, I think it brings them into the correct level of importance related to each other. You know, people spend so many resources with evaluating level 1, doing what some people call a happy sheet or a smile sheet or a reaction sheet, finding out, did people like it? What did they think? You know, we're not saying don't do that, but hopefully you can see that it is the least important level and the place to save your resources instead of spending them. But before we go too far down that path, let's take a look at the 5 foundational principles. These are the guiding lights that are going to bring you success and to help you to be one of the training professionals that thrives. So we're going to talk through each of these, give you some examples, talk about how Bob and Maria approach these differently and why they're getting very different outcomes in their programs as a result. So I am going to turn it over to Jim, and he's going to get started with foundational principle number 1. The end is the beginning.
You know, I think a lot of people in our industry, learning and development, training, whatever you want to call it, could quote this from Stephen Covey and say, yeah, we're supposed to begin with the end in mind. But those aren't just fancy words that we want to remember. This is the first of our foundational principles, that you'd better know what the destination is and the outcomes that are expected from your senior team, the senior leaders. So for 60 years, as Wendy said, the Kirkpatrick model has been around. And unfortunately, for 60 years, the majority of people that have implemented it do not start with the end in mind. They start with the training and the learning, maybe a little bit into level 3 performance, but don't end up at the right destination, the right outcomes. So this is that traditional way that many of you have learned and practiced the 4 levels. But in order to start with the end in mind, we need to flip the model on its head and do some re-engineering, some reverse engineering, where we begin with conversations with those senior leaders and looking at the mission, the vision, the strategic plan of the organization to do what we call a business needs analysis to find out what are those outcomes that are expected in order for the senior leaders and our program sponsors to say, job well done. Then we must avoid the temptation to start building training and stop first at level 3 behavior and do what we call a performance needs analysis with line managers and supervisors to make sure that there is clarity about what behaviors need to happen in the workplace that will cause those results to occur. And then and only then is it time to build some kind of intervention plan that includes training and, of course, what happens before and after training in order to make sure the behaviors are ready to occur and the outcomes happen. So that's our first foundational principle. Wendy, I'm going to turn it back to you for the second and third.
Well, that sure is an eye-opener, Jim. You know, how often do we see people thinking, well, I'm going to start with some good training, but really starting with the goal of where we're trying to go makes so much sense. And that brings us right to foundational principle number 2, that return on expectations, or what we call ROE, is the ultimate indicator of value. Well, this one's been a little bit misunderstood, hasn't it, Jim? What we mean by this is a successful training initiative delivers the outcomes that stakeholders are looking for. Now, we don't mean any random thing your stakeholder might happen to say, like, oh, we hope the training is good. No, what we mean is stakeholders in an organization have a very specific role, and they are to maximize the organizational outcomes, to make sure that the key performance indicators are met, shareholder needs are met, maybe that the company is profitable, that its mission is accomplished to its greatest possibility. So when we say return on expectations is the ultimate indicator of value, what we mean is you need to find a way to relate what is taught in your training to what gets done on the job to organizational level outcomes. So when we talk about organizational level outcomes, we're talking about things like sales, profitability, reduction of regrettable turnover, customer retention, customer acquisition, things like that. These are really high level goals. And those are the kinds of things that you need to be talking about with your stakeholders or whomever you can have a meaningful conversation with before you start to concern yourself with designing training, and definitely before it gets delivered. So you're clear on where you're trying to go. And this really all comes together in the New World Kirkpatrick model. And here, what we take a look at is, you know, you'll notice maybe right away that levels 1 and 2 are kind of stuck together. Well, the reason for that is those are the least important levels in terms of what you're trying to accomplish with your training. And they also do occur somewhat simultaneously. In fact, you might actually be evaluating some of level 1 before you evaluate level 2. So the levels are not sequential and they're not equal. The other thing we wanted to illustrate here is that you take care of making sure people have learned what they're supposed to learn in training. And then once you're done with training and you've documented that, you're done. You really don't need to go back there. Now you enter the world of work and performance. So you'll see level 3 behavior is surrounded by additional on-the-job learning and also support and accountability. And Jim's going to talk more about that in a bit, and I will too, because this is where it's at. Level 3 looks like a bullseye, and because that's where you should be spending your time and your attention, and keeping your eye on what's happening in the on-the-job environment and seeing if you're starting to get preliminary indications, what we call leading indicators, that those outcomes you're looking for are happening. And then that contributes to your desired outcomes. So that's the New World Kirkpatrick model and the New World way to look at the 4 levels. They don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not equal. And you want to spend the most of your time on level 3 and focus on getting to level 4. So Jim, that's a quick, very quick, really overview of what return on expectations means. Why don't you talk a little bit more about the kind of business partnership it takes to get it?
Ooh. You know, Wendy, what you're talking about and what I alluded to a bit is the science of the model. But the science of the model does not work very well unless you attend to the art of the model. And point 3 here is really about that. It is building, listen carefully, working relationships with line managers, supervisors, and your program sponsors. And that doesn't mean just going and asking them what does success look like, and then you're going back and spend the rest of your time with your training and delivery of the training. This means an ongoing relationship where they are your partners and they will help along the way, not just at the beginning, at the end, but help along the way to maximize performance. And we're going to talk about that in the next point. But all of you, every single one of you, can do something about creating more meaningful conversations by crossing the bridge from the learning side of your organization to the business side and creating those conversations and talking to them about what we're talking to you about. And right now we're talking to people virtually We talk to them in person, and just in any method that you can use to create that human to human contact, seeking first to understand what their issues are and what their needs are. And then when they say, do you think you can help us? You can say, you know what, if we all work together, I believe that we really can create some very good things. So that is really the art of it, building those ongoing relationships, because those relationships create trust to be able to move forward and to execute now the foundational principle number 4, which Wendy is going to share with you.
Jim, I can't even believe you're letting me teach this one, because this is so your favorite principle. Value must be created before it can be demonstrated. Well, sounds logical enough, sounds easy enough, but how many times do we see this isn't what happens? You know, I worked for an organization before I knew the Kirkpatrick model, and the leader of the training group loved to have the big event. We had these big conferences, lots of sessions and keynotes and all kinds of fun and technology. And I remember once after we had one of these big events that was, you know, it was a 6-figure spend. It was expensive, and it was for hundreds of, maybe thousands of people. After the event, he pulled the team together. There were about 35 of us on that training team, and we pulled around a really big table, and he said, okay, what results did we deliver? What value did we create? Well, the sad thing is, this was after the event was over, and we hadn't really thought through what kind of value we were trying to deliver, except of course we were hoping it was going to increase sales and increase knowledge and, you know, a handbasket of things, but we didn't have a good plan. And, you know, value truly does have to be created before you can show it. And that was a pretty hard final report to pull together when we went about it that way. So we really encourage you to prepare yourself by creating a really strong, what we call a level 3 plan. Your level 3, or where behaviors occur on the job, that is where value is created. So let's take a look at those items. So you've got 2 different areas. First, you really need to hold people accountable to what you're asking them to do on the job after training. So this may sound super basic, but how clear are you on what you want people to do after training? You know, I've kind of stumped a group of people where I've said, all right, in one sentence, specifically, what should people do on the job as a result of this program? Boy, sometimes when you go around the table, 10 people, you might get 10 different answers. So first you have to have clarity on what you want people to do. Then the next stumper can be, and how are they going to be held accountable to that? Because, you know, what you hold people accountable to is what they know is important. So here we've got some different methods of accountability for you to consider. Now, you might be thinking, Wendy, I can't do this. I'm like one person or a small team, or they're not here, we're remote. That's really where the art of this comes in, thinking about what are the methods that are actually reasonable and available to you. So that's why we've got a number of them. We're not saying do every one of these for every program, but think about in practical terms, what could you do? So if you're not there, maybe you can ask your training graduates to self-monitor after training, or maybe you can set up a peer or buddy system. Maybe you can ask supervisors for some key data points and they can report those back to you. Or maybe it's as simple as giving people a call or having a Zoom meeting just like this and getting in touch with people. So you want to make sure, if this is a mission critical initiative, if this is important for your organization, you've got at least one method of accountability put in place, and probably several. Now, this isn't all just holding people accountable. We also want to help them to succeed. That's building the value. So you have some to demonstrate. So we've actually got 3 different kinds of support we want you to consider. Under reinforcement, I think you're going to see some familiar friends. This is where things like your job aids and checklists that you might create as part of your training materials live. You might do some refreshers, some reminders. And hey, maybe you remind your executives to really walk the talk and show people what you're looking for and that they need to be demonstrating that as well. For major initiatives, you will also want to think about, would you like a formal method of encouragement in place? For example, might you have people who act as coaches, or do you actually have a mentoring system? Those are great resources to help people if they, maybe this is something a little more complicated. You know, when you're talking about the big government agency with the whole new approach to customer service, if you're kind of teaching an old dog new tricks, not that people in customer service are dogs, but that's just a US saying, then what you'll want to do is make sure you've got someone available to them for support if they're feeling intimidated by this. The other thing that you want to think about is formal and informal methods of reward. On the formal side, is the behavior that you're asking people to perform in line with how they actually get formally reviewed? Is it how they get merit increases? And does it fit overall with their job description? If this is really major, you'll want to consider that. And if you're talking about a leadership development initiative or change in the way that your company does business, you want to go to that level. But, you know, if this is something less major, you also definitely can implement things that don't require that level of cross-functional agreement. For example, you can have some informal methods of rewards. How about a Friday pizza lunch or, you know, a little social get together on Zoom of the team to celebrate some milestones and successes? How about those caught you doing the right thing certificates, or something that just a little thing that you can give people to let them know, hey, I see you doing the right thing, and I'm rooting for you, and let's all do this. So those are just a few brief ideas to help you to really help to create the value that you want to be able to demonstrate later. So let's say you are successful in creating some of that value. You've got a real story to tell now. So Jim, I'm going to turn it back to you. And why don't you talk a little bit about value? Because, you know, it's not just the results at the end. It's not just the reaction sheets at the beginning. It's really a story, isn't it?
It really is. And the story is connecting dots from the training to the learning to the performance. And then the easiest, you ready for this? The easiest level of the Kirkpatrick model is level 4. Now, you got the farthest to go because you've got to go all the way to winning the hearts and the minds of the people that are judging whether you've been successful or not. But if you really do the good work at level 3 performance that Wendy just went through, the level 4 is a compelling chain of evidence. It's a story of value that shows the outcomes at level 4 from the effort at level 3. So if you really focus on level 3, what you need to know is, as we talked about, starting with the end in mind, is what are the outcomes that you are looking for in order to maximize the results. So this is a picture taken of me a few years ago showing the connections as a chain of evidence. Now, talk about evidence here. We strongly discourage you from following tradition and using one method or one source to come up with evidence. For instance, a smile sheet, as Wendy mentioned, at level 1, and a pre and post test at level 2, and maybe a 90-day survey at level 3. If you think you're doing Kirkpatrick with that, you're not. You are going to struggle. So instead, this is a concept we want you to consider. Blended evaluation plan, a methodology in which data are collected from multiple sources, see that? Using multiple methods in a blended fashion that considers all 4 Kirkpatrick levels. So you really cannot trust a single source or a single method to get you anywhere near the truth of what's happening, both in the classroom and particularly in the workplace. You need to use a variety of methods to really know what's going on, what's working and what isn't. And to try and keep this practical and simple, here are three options of where you're using data, you are talking to people, and you are using surveys. And if you kind of get that combination going from 3 different places, and we call it triangulation, chances are good that you will have an accurate picture of what's working and what isn't in the field, so that you can make adjustments in order to maximize the climb that we call up the mountain, which are the outcomes, the fruit of the effort at level 3. Speaking of mountain, here's a mountain that we've kind of adopted as a metaphor here. Lower left corner, you know what's going on there? Formal training. And the last thing we want to do is formally train people and say, all right, good luck. All you need to do is keep walking up back on the job and you'll be fine. Well, they won't be fine, but they will be fine if you execute what Wendy showed you at level 3. And what happens then with that performance support and accountability post-training, when they're back on the job, you start to see these signs of progress, these signs of hope, these signs of success that we call leading indicators. And first, you'll start to see individuals, fewer errors and shorter processing time and fewer mistakes and things. And then as the support and accountability continues during the climb, during the workplace functioning, you will start to see team outcomes. And as you continue to offer that help and accountability, where people are helping each other that are struggling, helping to show the way, this gradually climbs up to showing what we call this chain of evidence. And in this case, what you're trying to do is ultimately contribute, not cause, not create, but contribute your fair share to the desired results, which are the outcomes, the final outcomes, and the purpose of your organization. And we really mean it, that we're not just trying to provide a polite suggestion to you. Executing this will, in all probability, make the difference between you thriving, because in this case, you will no longer be seen as a cost center. You will be seen as strategic business partners that are creating and contributing value to the organization. And if you continue, or you choose the path of hoping that somehow the training itself will be powerful enough to get the job done at level 3 and level 4, we need to end that thinking, because it's just not true. And we just encourage you to consider this business partnership approach. All right, Wendy, I'm going to send it back to you for a few suggestions on how they might do this.
Yeah, we have covered a lot of concepts in a few minutes, and you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Wendy, how am I supposed to do this? We are here for you. We invite you to join our free community. Just go to kirkpatrickpartners.com and click on the resources tab. And with a very brief little form, you will get instant access to our resources library. I haven't counted lately, but we've got way over 100 items there. It's probably more than 150. So that's where you're going to find recorded webinars, podcasts, white papers, articles, templates, tools, guides. Those are all there for you to help you to get started. And you're also going to get a subscription to our e-newsletter, the Kirkpatrick Community News. This is not an advertising piece. We have fresh content in this for you every issue you get. So you're getting the latest and greatest from us and our partners with how-to information to help you to stay current and to be able to evaluate your programs. Now, if you're looking for a little deeper dive, I can highly recommend 3 of our books. Our newest book, Kirkpatrick's 4 Levels of Training Evaluation, will walk you step by step through the things that we've talked about today. If you need to show the value of a program, and therefore you need to make sure it's built right to do that. Training on Trial has a lot of inspirational examples from organizations who have done this. Now, if you really want to become an expert in level 3, building that implementation plan, Transferring Learning to Behavior is the book for you. These are all incredibly cost-effective ways to get a ton of detail. Now, if you're not so much into books, but you're like, hey, I want to talk about it, I want to experience it, I want to do this with a group of people, then I suggest you consider getting Kirkpatrick certified. At the bronze level, you will join over, I think, 15,000 professionals worldwide to learn how to create the plan for an actual program so that you have some value to evaluate. Then when you move on to silver level, you're going to actually implement that plan and basically show that you have created the value. A great stop along the way is strategic evaluation planning certification. This is where you're going to learn how to partner with the business to get ultimate program success. And we hope you stay the course through silver level certification, because this is where you're actually going to do it. This is where you implement your plan, you gather your data, you monitor and adjust, and you reliably deliver those organizational results that the program was designed to deliver. So that's when you earn your business partner status and your wings, if you will. So this isn't just us doing all of this stuff. We have affiliates all around the world. So we really encourage you to contact your local affiliate. You can talk to them in your own language and talk about your own local situation. They can teach all those certification programs that we teach. And most of them are really doing cool things right now, connecting people. So you definitely want to hook up with them and get on their mailing list, because people are having roundtable discussions. They're doing free public webinars. They'll definitely get on the phone and chat with you about your situation and help you out. Now, I want you to know that the only organizations worldwide that are going to teach you the authentic Kirkpatrick model and our training are the people listed on the screen as of today. And you can always verify this on our website if you go to the About Us tab and then look at the list of Kirkpatrick affiliates. So make sure you're working with the real thing if you want to get the results that we're talking about. Well, thank you so much for spending some of your valuable day with us. We really, really appreciate it. We want each and every training professional and every organization worldwide to be successful, and we are here to help you with that. So thank you. Please reach out to us anytime.
Best wishes to all of you. Thanks for joining us. And don't steal our stuff.